Hele hele. Her şeyler geliyor mu? Lay lay lay lay lay. Okey yapın. Başlayayım. O zaman yeni bir oyun. Haydi bakalım bir girelim. Oyun sistemisi şeyler kötüyse onu da söyleyeyim. Geçelim.
Office of the Medical Examiner, Pete'sville. Dr. Jack Hanman is speaking. How can I help you?
Good evening, this is Kate Brooks. I'm not sure if you remember me. A few weeks ago, we talked about an article I'm working on. It's about your wife. I dropped by last Friday to speak to you, but you weren't working at the time. I asked the security guard to pass on a note for me. I would like us to discuss the topic of...
I thought I had made it painfully obvious for the last time. No! Please don't call me again and stop inquiring about my wife. Damn journalists. They don't let me work. God damn it. I'm not in the best frame of mind to record a lecture for my students now. I'm feeling completely broken. Where did I leave my meds this time?
İlaç içiyoruz. Alkolümüz var. Otopsi yapıyoruz. Harika.
They definitely pay me too little for this.
Az da para kazanıyormuşuz. Her neyse bildiğiniz gibi işimizin başarılarını anlamak için bir makale yazmışım. İnternetle birlikte kaç üstünüze bakıyorum. Bu asansörleri yapabiliriz. Allah Allah. Karımızla videolarımız var.
Stephen didn't clean up after himself again. Wednesday. It's not my favorite day, although it's certainly better than Monday.
Doğru söylüyorsun. Pazartesi'den daha iyi.
I guess it was in another life.
Karımız öldü bizim hayattan mı? Yani bu simülatör atlamayacağını düşünüyorum. Umarım atlamaz. Yani atlarsa bana da şok etkisi yaratır.
Awful. It would be good to finally repair the coffee machine.
İlaç içecektik biz değil mi? Ben böyle gezip duruyorum her zamanki gibi. Hadi bakalım. Banyo nerede? Ama tam karşı. Ay ne pislik bu ama. Pis buralar hep. Aha ilaç.
Okay, time to pull myself together and get back to work.
Ne bu? Bak şimdi karak.
I need to set the camera first.
Depodaki kamerayı al. Depo, sen misin depo? Evet.
This place is starting to look like a hoarder's dream rather than a store. Now remember, Jack, don't forget to hit the record button this time.
Bizim kafamız güzel ha. Biz nasıl otopsi yapacağız? Evet. Hadi bir.
Hopefully the new tripod is going to hold up.
Selam olsun.
Now, I just have to get everything in frame.
Bence tam ortaladık.
This should be fine. November 20th, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. This autopsy is conducted by Jack Hanman. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the autopsy room. Today, you will have the dubious pleasure of following a full autopsy, step by step. For those of you who have already performed your first autopsy, this will refresh your basic knowledge. In turn, for those whose knowledge is only theoretical, I advise not to watch this after a meal.
Yemek yerken izlemeyin. Aynı şey sizin için de geçerli arkadaşlar. Kara tahta budur diye düşünüyorum ama bu kara tahta değil galiba. Başka şöyle kara tahta var. O da kara tahta.
Let's start.
1.
Always wear an apron, mask, and gloves. Goggles are a must when the job is splashy. And in case of sharp accidents, it's worth having disinfectants at hand. It's true that you won't get ptomaine poisoning straight away, but if your liver or kidney aren't doing well, you may end up with diarrhea. The cadaver is placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathologist stands on the right of the deceased. Make sure that all the necessary tools are always at hand so that you don't have to run around looking for something, like I do all the time. In the process of revealing and securing forensic evidence, it is difficult not to interfere with the original condition of the deceased. Written and photographic documentation plays a vital role throughout the entire examination process. During your research, be patient, inquisitive, but above all, attentive to detail. Many entries are visible at first glance, but sometimes they can be cover for more interesting stories. And lastly, remember that nothing teaches you self-narration like working with the dead. So get used to that fact soon. Everyone will think you're talking to yourself. Now, on to the police folder. That will contain all sorts of pertinent information as to who the deceased might be and what potentially happened to them. So, let's take a closer look, shall we?
Hadi bakalım.
The deceased's name is Tobias Chambers, locally known as Old Toby. Homeless and unemployed for at least a couple of years. The deceased was found on the outskirts of a parking lot at a gas station, where he often begged and persistently offered drivers to wash their car windows. The body was noticed by a station employee during the morning shift. Initially, he thought that someone had thrown some boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize the pile of clothes as the body of a man. He worked most of his life at the local port dealing with unloaded cargo. He was fired for being drunk and starting fights. His son runs a hardware store on his own. His wife left him years ago. They both had no contact with the deceased. Signs of libation were found around the body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket. That's it. It's worth remembering the context around the scene of a death. This allows you to better interpret any traces found on the body. I shouldn't start the procedure without gloves. Now it's our turn to take some pictures for our files. If I can just remember where I left the camera. It's in here somewhere. Aha! There you are. I knew it was here somewhere. As I mentioned at the beginning, before we begin the internal examination, we need to document the cadaver and the condition it arrived in. We begin with a full body photo. Try and stick to the top-down rule, but this is not always possible. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility, not the perfect frame.
Nasıl olacak? Okay. Genelde fotoğraf. Oyunlar.
Voila, now we move on to the next step, looking for traces. Take your time. Look at the corpse from different sides, from different angles, up close, and from a distance. You're looking for anything out of the ordinary.
Yakınlaştır.
The poorly healed wound looks old. I'll take a closer look later.
Evet, yaraya bakacağız belli. Bunlar. Buralarda yara var ama kabul görmüyormuş. Kabul görmüyor galiba. Ayağımın arkasında bir şeyler dedim.
Some wounds in the feet and signs of frostbite, probably because the subject's shoes were too small. That's something interesting. It will be necessary to check whether this injury was severe enough to cause damage to the brain.
Bayağı şey yapıyorum ben. Ne var? Evet.
Hardened hands, worn out by physical work, and frostbite?
Bu adam nasıl olmuş ya?
In a moment, we will check which of our initial observations will be worthy of further consideration. But before we get to that, I need to write down some basic data.
Burasın. Ha burası. Hadi bakalım. Hop. Hop. Sol işareti bilmiyoruz. Otopsi işlemini gerçekleştirin. Hadi ya, nasıl yapacağım ama? Keşke bir yardımcı olsaydı. Eldivenimiz hiçbir şeyimiz yok mu?
Scalpel, scissors, syringe, magnifying glass, knife. I guess I forgot to clean the knife. Scalpel, I guess I forgot to clean the knife. Personal information. The deceased was unclothed. Date. Okay. As you can see, I note everything down on previously prepared forms. Every pathologist must keep a detailed record of every step of the autopsy. This not only allows you to track the procedure, but also collates the results together, upon which you may back up your conclusions. So, enough of the boring prep. Let's begin by taking a closer look at the spots I photographed earlier. For this, you're going to need a magnifying glass.
Şimdi büyüteçiyor. Büyütecimiz nerede ya? Burada.
Which spot first? I can confirm the presence of ecchymosis on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. Add alcohol, which I can clearly smell, and this was an accident just waiting to happen.
Tabii ki artık kondur savaşmışız. Kokudan anlıyor.
It looks like a burn mark. No doubt painful, but it's not pertinent for this case. Here we can see frostbite on the fingertips. We can tell by the characteristic skin color.
Donmuşsun abi. Geri gidemiyor mu? Ayağa bakacaktım sanki.
Definitely a painful mix of frostbite, abrasions, and blisters. Old Toby had been wearing shoes too small for him for a very long time. That's if he wore any at all. So far, there are a lot of superficial wounds, but only one serious injury to the head. Let's go back to our notes.
Notlarımız neredeydi ya? Notlara nereden bakıyorduk? Keşke baktık. Buradan. Buradan. Ha, pano üzerinden. Ana mankeni. Ana mankeni mi var burada?
First, I mark the location of the entries and make notes for each one. So the head wound. Definitely an important clue. This is something we'll investigate first. We're not in frost season yet, but high humidity, wind, and the inability to... If Toby's body was cold for a prolonged period, even though this type of wound didn't contribute to the deceased's death, we're still required to record it. As you can see, we don't have much to go on. Let's write down what preliminary causes of death we can think of.
Yazalım.
Various types of accidents are a common cause of death, and considering the conditions in which he slept, the nights have been particularly nasty lately. This is of no interest to us. Since the deceased clearly smelled of alcohol, I'll add alcohol poisoning to our list. We still have one thing left from the basics, rigor mortis. Well, we take our deceased by the hand, gradually we raise it,
Olmaz.
Now let it go. As you can see, the hand falls loose. What's the conclusion? Death must have occurred more than 72 hours ago. The police information appears correct.
Tamam.
Head trauma seems the most promising, so we'll start there. For this, I need an oscillating saw.
Da var mı? Vallahi var.
The cut is made from ear to ear. After which, we remove the skin and the top of the skull.
Hey.
After the
Çok
basic
güzel bir şey.
examination, we can see that the brain's cerebral gyri in both hemispheres are
sallanıyor.
symmetric. The brain looks good. Let's take a cross-section. Some pathologists prefer to examine organs without removing them. However, for me, it's much more convenient to examine them on a board, which we'll do now.
Benim kafam güzel mi? Arada gidiyor, görüntü şeyler oluyor. Merhaba canım.
My head. Oh, I can't think straight. Pills. Where are my pills?
Benim bir ilacımı içeyim mi? Hadi. Gel bir ilacımı içelim gel. Gel baba. Gel bir ilacımı içelim. Nerede ilacım? Al bir iç bakayım. Ya beyin ellerim biraz önce ya. Ha. Hayat daha güzel. Görüntüne atmıştı. Evet. Şimdi beynimizi kesebiliriz. Nasıl kesebiliriz?
Holding a long, narrow blade knife in the dominant hand, we slowly cut the cranial nerves on both sides, all the time pulling the brain towards us.
Ne istiyorsun sen benden? Ne istemiyorum. Böyle istiyorum. Bak. Ne diyorsun? Ay. Beyin kesiyorum.
So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the brain.
Tamam, beyinde bir şey çıkmadı. Devam.
We can rule the fatal accident out as well.
Potansiyel olmadan kısmın hariç tutmuyor.
Brain is in good condition, so we have no choice but to proceed to the internal examination of the other organs.
Üzerimize atıyoruz mu?
I grab a scalpel from my kit.
Neşteyi seçelim ve keselim.
The
Neşter.
incision should be in the shape of a letter Y.
Biraz
We
yamuk
use a
oldu
deep
galiba.
cut to reach all the way to the ribs and to penetrate the abdominal wall.
Şöyle bir değişik. Şuraya çekelim. Alakası var.
All right. Now we peel back and separate the skin.
Boşlu belli. Hey.
Now we need to remove the ribs.
Yeah,
We'll
look.
need the loppers for this.
Makas. Makas. Makas. Nerede makas? Bu olur mu?
Quite a satisfying crunch, for some anyway. After removing the cartilage tissue, we instantly notice two things. We can see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Alice smoked too. It didn't kill her, but... what was I talking about? Lungs. Yes. Advanced inflammation.
Yani alkol değilim. Onu diyemiyorum galiba.
What now? The syringe. Now's a good time to collect some samples.
Ne örneği alacağım ben acaba?
Specifically 3. From the eye, the heart, and the bladder. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. Vitreous humor analysis is very useful in indicating long-term alcohol abuse. Now from the bladder, we draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. Now we take our samples to the centrifuge. But before I do that, I need to find my notebook. My dyscalculia means that I always double-check the settings. Please excuse me while I run and fetch it.
Lütfen. Lütfen. Pis. Oğlum pis. Oğlum pis. Çaktırmadan öğreniyoruz ha.
This whole thing is covered in stains. I should check this out under the microscope sometime. Let's get back to the examination.
Ben geldim çocuklar. Kamerayı da gösterdim.
We put all of the samples into the rotor. Now we set the appropriate time and speed.
Evet, kadın canlının karşısına başlayın. Nerede yazıyor ki? 160'lar. Bu değil. Hiçbir şey bulmuyorum. Nasıl yapacağım? Değil. Aç. Şöyle ben. Onu dokusam mı? Dur bakalım. Deneyelim. Evet. Oldu mu? Olmadı mı? Ona 90 değil demek. Ona 90 değilse ne peki? 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 değilse 90 Body. 75 mi? Yani bütün bunların hiçbir değilse ne? Delireceğim. Ona 85 değil. Ona 90 değil. Yetmiş. Ha, 70 mi? Ee? 70 değil, 75 değil. Bu ne? Ha, 15 dakika. 15 dakika. Ben ne gördüm?
Okay, let's roll.
Bak değil mi? Hadi başla.
Oh shit. The fuses again. Where were we? Oh yes. Let's see what we've got here. Everything's separated as it should. Our lab is closed until tomorrow after the last, incident. However, considering that Toby's favorite eau de parfum appears to be ethanol, I'm guessing the results won't surprise me at all. Let's go further. We will now focus on the cardiovascular system, specifically the heart.
Tamam. Odaklanalım. Otopsiye verelim.
We remove the organ and examine it closely. We look for dark hypoxic areas, clots, or other elements that stand out as abnormal. At first glance, the heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that would have contributed to Toby's death. Now let's take a closer look at the stomach. Size is normal, healthy, and as expected, the stomach has no major external damage. We must now cut it open and inspect inside. We will do it carefully so that its contents do not spill out. We open the stomach along the greater curvature, from the heart to the pyloric end. Oh, I already feel like there's something left inside.
Yemek yemiştir, yemek vardır içinde yani. Ne olacak ya içinde? Garip garip şey.
Okay, large amount of gas, small amounts of yellow, grayish food content, resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or the bulk of his stomach had already found a way out. Looks like I'll have to find the missing contents.
Benim niye kafamda değişik oluyor? Ben gidip iletişebilir miyim hocam? Bence iletişersek hayat çok güzel olur. Benim midelerim şimdi sıkıntı yok. Beyinle, mideler. Ha bak hayat daha güzel aktı ya. Evet, oyunda koşma olmaması beni çok mutlu ediyor şu an. Demek ki korkutucu bir öğe yok. Otopsiye dönüyorum. Döndük. Geldim.
There are two ways here. One is obvious. And the other is... It couldn't have been suffocation, could it? I'll add this to the list and move on to the deceased's neck. At first glance, the trachea looks normal. Same result as with the stomach. The external inspection doesn't tell us anything. This time we'll cut on a tray.
Hadi bakalım. Hadi bakalım.
While cutting such a small organ as the trachea, we must make a precise incision.
Metal tepsi. Ha, bu mu?
To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the scalpel as we would a pen.
Kesmedin mi? Kestim işte ya.
And after careful examination and deduction, we've got it. A clogged trachea. It's time to summarize the whole thing. Based on the report and preliminary documentation, it's safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep on his back.
Aa,
Then, the gastric contents refluxed and flooded the airways, causing death. That's why we don't forget about the recovery position at dorm parties.
alkol aldıktan sonra uyuyakalmış, bayılmış. Sonra da öldükten sonra da kusmuyla boğulmuş ya. Bu neymiş? Doğal oluyor bu o zaman. Doğal. Doğal değil mi? Doğal. Geçemiyorum. Kaza mı?
And now it's all clear. The death
Bu bir
was
kaza
suffocation.
mıdır?
Now, signature.
Oo.
The mystery is solved. But for us, this is not the end. First, the dead body needs to be cleaned up.
Jadi. Tamam yaptım.
For this, we will need to close the body and grab the needle. First, we unroll the skin flaps.
Kapatalım. Hoppa.
And then, we sew the deceased back up.
Gel. Yine.
I'm using the baseball stitch technique. This stitching method is very strong and quick to do.
Oo. Artık iyi. Hoppa.
Beautiful.
Güzel de güzel. Olur.
Now we say goodbye to the deceased and put them safely in the fridge, ready for the next stage of their journey.
Nasıl bitiyor? Gölgeyi buzulmaya başlamak.
God, I'm tired. I'll drop these samples off at the lab on the way to the bar.
Hadi gidelim. Bırakacağım mı kadar?
I'll call Stephen. I don't feel like drinking alone today.
Nasıl bitti? Hay biz neler gördük kardeşim. Bu mu bizi korkutacak? Selam, konuşuyor musun? Kuru kafalar görüyorum. Hadi. Hadi uyan. Uyandım. Umarım.
Forgive me. What? Christ. What a dream. Fuck.
Ne rahatlarım aldım. Bu ne biçim bir evdir ya. Abi ne?
It was a miracle that the coffee didn't wash off the writing. And that she said yes. Till death do us part.
Ablaya bir şeyler oldu galiba.
I wasn't able to support her through this. It's always good to have something for a rainy day. She got it for her first day of work, and she broke it the same day. She said it was for luck. It's always good to have something for a rainy day.
Galiba babamız. Galiba vefat etti.
It's been almost a year. So much light everywhere. It hurts too much to look at these, but I can't throw them away.
Bir evdeyiz vardı. Banyo nerede senin? Saat. Evet.
A pill a day keeps the defective Jack away. It's a shame these won't help with my hangover. It's just too dirty to use. The fucking phone.
Haydi bakalım. Açalım.
Okay. I know I'm late. I'll be there soon. It's not like the dead are impatient.
Jack, no.
Alice? Who is this?
It's Charlotte Graves.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you. I thought it was work calling.
It's okay. I hate it when work calls me at home, too. How is everything? We haven't talked since... you know.
Well, there are good days, and there are bad days. What can I say? At least I can hide away at work.
Well, you always were the most comfortable in the dissecting room. Listen, I have an unusual request.
Okay, how can I help?
It's nothing serious. I just wanted to ask, do you have any pictures of Alice? Maybe one where the two of us are together? I'd love to have something to remind me of her.
I guess. I'm not sure. I'll look through her things.
Thank you. I'm sorry to trouble you with this. All this can't be easy for you.
I'll get through it somehow. I've been meaning to sort through her stuff for a while. Have you asked Stephen if he has anything?
Yes, I spoke with him this morning. He said he gave everything to their mother and that I should ask you.
I see.
Jack, I know you're trying. That you cope somehow. Stephen's there for you. Although, well, we all know how he can be. But, I mean, if you wanted to reminisce about Alice, talk.
I really should go now. I overslept, I'm late for work, and I still have some errands to run on the way.
Oh, Okay, sure. Sorry to keep you.
I'll look for something and send it over. Thanks for the call, and bye.
Oh, do you have my address?
Not on hand. You'd best remind me again.
292 Browning Lane, apartment 432, Johnson City, New York, 13790.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. It would mean a lot to me. I just miss her so much.
Yeah, me too. And that's okay. Really, no problem.
Thank you. Take care, Jack.
You too, Charlotte. It was nice to hear you. Well, that was a bit unexpected. I should probably find something to send. It hurts too much to look at these, but I can't throw them away. An indispensable element of every office. I should really try and read a few of these. Time flies, and probably doesn't have to get up to work. I still feel uneasy. At this time, Alice would probably be sitting here reading a book. They certainly have more will to live than I do. The remnants of last night's binge with Steven. I'm not sure if it's still edible. Menu for today: dinner in town and takeaway coffee.
Canım kardeşim, ben nereden bulacağım sana? Var. Ama şu güzel. Buldum işte.
Some days, I just feel like setting fire to all. I'm fed up with it.
Ne şahane tanıyorsun. Alice'in hangi fotoğrafını alacağız ki? Alice'in bir fotoğrafını. Alice'in hangi fotoğrafını? Olmaz mı?
I really need to get this laundry done.
Fotoğraf yok. Kapatacağım. Aha.
Alice and Charlotte in Amsterdam. It's hard to believe they've known each other for so long. It would be better if Charlotte had this. It deserves to be on display and not hidden in a drawer. Okay, time to go to work. I'm seriously late. I should grab some coffee and aspirin on the way. These fluorescent tubes are brutal.
Bakalım ne oldu? Kaçın. Bakmadım. Başka bir şey. Nasıl kutu? Posta kutusu.
Standard correspondence consisting of bills, advertising leaflets, and pious reminders about the upcoming end of the world.
Beni.
I hope this helps, Charlotte. Okay, all done here. Time to go. Huh? Damn, I forgot my jacket. Well, I'll brave it for tonight. Too bad.
Hiçbir şey var o şey. Gündüz gittim, akşam da vardım ya.
Nice and fresh. At least it's peaceful here. Good evening, Mr. Ridley.
The timesheet, Hammond.
Some corpses have more personality than this guy.
I'm saying this.
Christ. Who leaves the window open in the middle of November? So I'd better check the answering machine.
Hi, Jack. I dropped by a little early today. I left the body with Ridley in the corridor. He wasn't sitting in the locker then, so maybe he'll even throw him into the room. Well, how are you doing? I mean, it's your first birthday without her, and... This, I still have a hangover, and you know me, I run to the John like the neighbor's fucking dog. You know, today I slipped on his shit again. That fucking furball. He always has to shit next to my car. Anyway, I can't come over in the evening, but we'll catch up on the weekend, okay? Bye. Fuck. I almost forgot. Charlotte called me this morning. She asked about you, so answer your calls, Jack. This time it's not a reprimand for being late.
That's par for the course. I wonder when this clown will learn to look under his feet.
Hmm.
Due to a lack of preparation, This time, the lecture will be improvised. I don't understand why you can't just smoke outside.
Biraz sesli. Ben çevirme mağduriyeti mi yaşıyorum acaba? Geçti ya. Gördün mü? Başlayamıyorum.
Birthday. I actually forgot it was today. Alice baked me muffins like these every birthday. A treat for later. I always crave something sweet after a section. Okay, joke's over. Apron, gloves, and get to work. Ah, man. I remember you. You were on that talent show. What was your name again? I need to order another batch of these. I've got to remember to do that later. And that's the whole point. Steven laughs at me for recording everything. He says I have a bigger collection of stuff like this than most of the creeps he's caught. November 21st, 1991. Time, 9:13 p.m. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Handman. Lecture for the Medical University of Missouri. After yesterday's lecture, you should already know the ins and outs, so today we'll be consolidating our knowledge. So, where do I start? That's right, police folder. Ah, yes, Samantha Barker. Now remember, there's probably going to be a lot of chatter about this. When questioned, friends admitted that Samantha's last days before losing contact seemed extremely happy and relaxed. She also quit drinking alcohol and mentioned something about rehab. The friend also admits that there was no indication of an impending tragedy. Found in her own apartment by police patrol. Officers were called by a concerned friend of the deceased, who had been unable to contact Barker for several days. After her first album became a commercial success, she was hit with a creative drought. She suffered panic attacks and severe sleep problems. Drugs and medication came into play. During the interrogation, a friend of the deceased admitted that Samantha never got to grips with the sudden fame that came after winning such a high-profile talent show. The deceased was found in her own apartment, in a semi-recumbent position on an armchair. Large quantities of alcohol and empty packets of sleeping pills were also found in the apartment. Well, let's see what settled this matter. As you can see, the body is fully clothed. Therefore, before we move on to photographic documentation, we must remove the clothes. Okay, now we can continue with the examination. Again, begin by taking photographs of the cadaver. I guarantee that over time it will cease being embarrassing for you. First, we photograph the whole body. And now, any suspicious-looking marks or wounds. Interesting. Very uneven. We need to investigate this. seen this many times.
Nedir o?
You don't get such bruises from a normal contusion.
Ablacım ne olmuş sana ya?
Well, there's even more here. A few we will need to look into here. Notes prepared. Time to take a closer look. Some furrows have imprinted more strongly, others less, as if someone was, undecided? The number of bruises suggests that there may have been some kind of tussle. Such bruises are caused by either a very heavy blow or by some internal issues. And here's something interesting. The skin of the deceased is covered with numerous blisters. Some of them are ruptured. Others still contain fluid residue. More numerous blisters. We have some leads to investigate here. Let's write this down. On the neck of the deceased, we can see clear furrows, indicating that strangulation may be the probable cause. In general, such blisters usually appear in the case of mechanical abrasion. Currently, it's difficult to say whether the bruises were the result of a beating, or whether it could be, although it's easier to have abrasions on your feet, but the number and size of the blisters suggest that it's probably a matter of barbiturate poisoning. Given the condition of the deceased, it's difficult to tell immediately whether the bruises were the result of a struggle or perhaps the result of iron deficiency. A severed spinal cord, trauma to the larynx, or I'll add barbiturates to the list of necessary. After examining the organs, we can easily verify whether there was to be checked in the lab later. Examination with a UV lamp will dispel some doubts. Potential attackers could have left traces. Given the testimony of the victim's friend, I add alcohol poisoning to the list of potential causes of Miss Barker's death. A blood test will no doubt quickly verify that hypothesis. I look carefully at the whole body. UV rays will reveal any traces. The area around the head is empty. Torso, empty without marks. Legs, there's nothing here. The left hand seems to be fine. No marks. Right hand clean. Well, nothing to surprise us here. Now gently, we take the deceased by the hand, and we check for rigor mortis. Again, the hand falls freely. After yesterday, You should know what this means. Since we don't have a definitive lead, we will examine all the key organs one by one. So, I'm starting the internal inspection. I dissect the skin of the deceased. And I proceed to deflect the skin flaps. Compared with yesterday's body, the deceased has only trace amounts of adipose tissue. Now for the ribs. What do we have here? Or rather, what don't we have? There is certainly no sign of internal bleeding. Sometimes regarding bruising, it doesn't take much. My wife was constantly banging into furniture, walking into door frames. That's a wonder she never broke anything. Before I disembowel the deceased, I will take samples for toxicological tests to determine the alcohol content in the body. I just need my syringe. Just to be sure, I'm taking samples from 3 organs. The eyeball, the heart. All done. I'll transfer these to the centrifuge. What was it? 15, 70, 10, 75? My old but trusted, ideal for all the fluid tests I need to perform during an autopsy. Maybe one day I won't need my notebook. Numbers have never been my strong point. It's probably why I regularly forgot birthdays and anniversaries. I'm lucky Alice always forgave me. Gently does it with this old thing. Handle with kid gloves. I'm starting the centrifuge. Let's see what results come out. The laboratory is already open, so... Fucking hell! Ridley! Mr. Ridley! Where is he? The fuses need resetting. Fuck it. I'll do it myself. I swear there was a flashlight in here.
Ben görmüyorum ama. Ben hiçbir şey görmüyorum. Ne bu? Ne? Şöyle görmüyorum ya. Hiçbir görmüyorum. Ben neredeyim ya? Var mı bu? Parlaklık. Bu olur mu? Hiçbir işe yaramaz. Ya oğlum elektrik kesildi, bir şey yok, bir şey yok. Hah, oh be. Allah seni ne yapmasın. Nereden çıkıyor bu? Abicim, önümü görmüyorum. Ben gidemiyorum.
Scalpel, scissors, syringe, magnifying glass, knife. I guess I forgot to clean the knife.
Neredeki? Ofiste değiller. Buraya değiller.
Whatever. I know where the switches are anyway. First the right, and then the left. And voila.
Yay.
What?
This is
What the? Oh, for fuck's sake. Can't I work in peace?
ilacım için.
Jack Hanman speaking.
Easy, why so rude?
Steve? Sorry, man. This place is falling apart, and Ridley won't even lift a finger to help. You just can't work here.
Did the centrifuge strip the fuses again?
Yeah, eventually everything's gonna go up in smoke.
Look on the bright side. It's a free cremation with your autopsy.
Jesus, stop it. That shit pisses me off.
Okay, sorry, Jack. Anyway, I'm calling to ask how the autopsy's going. Soon there'll be journalists sniffing around for info, so we'd best be ready.
I'll whiz through this in a couple of hours. It doesn't look like a complicated case to me. More of a formality. The report will be available in the morning.
Sounds great. Thanks. Phew. How's your head?
Well, my head seems better than yours. On the way to work.
Holy fuck. Jack, turn on the radio.
What? What's happening?
Quiet.
A 3-car police convoy was involved in an accident near Pete's Bay Bridge while transporting prisoners to Orleans Parish Prison. At the moment, we do not know the exact number of victims or whether any of the convicts escaped. However, the scale of the accident indicates a large number of victims, possibly even fatal ones. Police are on their way to investigate the incident and secure the area. We know that the injured prisoners are on death row. The police were to transport them to their execution, which was to take place tomorrow morning. Many of them are very dangerous criminals. We will report on the matter on an ongoing basis, so stay tuned with us.
What? Was? Steven, was Red Pete one of the passengers? He was, wasn't he? What if he survived?
Jack, I have to go. They want me on site.
What if he survived?
I gotta go. Talk to you later, okay?
Fuck. Calm down, Jack. Pills. I need my pills.
Hemen canım.
You heard him, Jack. A serious accident. Lots of victims. He's definitely dead. Yes. Nothing's going to happen. Christ. I've got to get back to work. What? Technical break. At least I know I can pursue a career as a janitor if I need to. My own but trusted centrifuge. My own but trusted centrifuge. Ideal for all the fluid tests I need to perform during an autopsy. Fucking hell! Alright, let's see if we were able to get anything out of this piece of crap. And miraculously, yes, the samples did spin. I'll transfer them to the chromograph in the lab. Alright, let's load this up. I placed the test tubes in the rack. Now, just take 5 milliliters from each.
Eylem hadi.
Precisely. And the next.
Ya bunları niye bana bıraktılar? Evet, tamam. Eğer.
5 more. We put the prepared sample into the machine.
Evet. Ne var?
Let's see what we have here. The results indicate that the deceased did consume alcohol shortly before her death. However, this is not an amount that could cause poisoning leading to death. Just slight inebriation. I can return to the body and continue the rest of the examination.
Arkadan olmasın. Okay.
The chromatograph results show that we can eliminate alcohol poisoning from our list of potential causes of death. However, remember that alcohol can affect the functioning of the entire body. It disturbs the heart rhythm, accelerating its rate, and dilutes the blood, which may result in more severe bleeding in the event of an accident. Also remember that alcohol affects the metabolism of drugs in the liver, which I'll now look at in more detail. First, I'll pick up the syringe again. I'll take samples from the liver and the heart to test the concentration of barbiturates in the body. That's enough. I'll do the test later. I'd best not try my luck with the centrifuge right now. Now I remove the liver.
Merhaba. Hadi. Geri.
No lesions. However,
Merhaba.
it is slightly enlarged. Perhaps it's a slight inflammation or drug-induced damage. It may also be the result of the deposition of substances from drugs. Let's check the weight of the organ. The weight is 1,300 grams. The liver is enlarged. I'll move on to a cross-sectional study. Perhaps the enlargement is the result of early cancerous changes. The blade glides through smoothly. I don't feel like I'm encountering any changes with an unusual structure. No steatosis or cirrhosis. The liver is actually quite clean inside.
Kız bırakmış zaten artık.
The liver is basically healthy. We already know that the deceased didn't abuse alcohol. The question is, what about drugs or other substances? I move on to the heart. Oh. At a glance, we can see signs of a heart attack. The deceased is definitely too young to have a heart attack due to natural causes. The liver is enlarged, not from alcohol poisoning, and the heart looks like it has collapsed. So, I guess we need to go to the centrifuge and check for these barbiturates. The last time I saw this kind of poisoning was a few years ago. I better check the data in my notebook. He was a middle-aged guy. He took his medication and forgot about it. So, he took another pill. He forgot again and took another one. And another one. Until he took the last one. That's why it's better to have amnesic drugs in boxes labeled with the days of the week. This sort of thing rarely happens anymore. Doctors tend to prescribe benzodiazepines. All right.
Bir deneyelim mi? Onu da söylemiş değil. Ona 75'e bakalım.
We close the centrifuge and pray that it doesn't trip anything again.
Lütfen elektrik kesilme. Please.
It looks like our luck is in.
Hadi alalım. Evet.
We can take the samples to the lab now. I wonder how she was able to get hold of these drugs. Okay, 2 samples this time. 6 milliliters each.
6. Tamam. Ayarlayayım. Tamam. Buradan bakalım. Ha. Olmaz ama.
Well, let's see how much of it we find. Nothing surprising. Significant amounts of phenobarbital metabolites of hepatic origin.
Yani
Looks like I'll have to check the contents of the deceased's stomach.
bir de mideye bakacağız.
The tests showed that the collected blood contained enough barbiturates to cause cardiopulmonary collapse. The question now is whether it was an accident or a deliberate act. I'm proceeding to examine the stomach. Before extraction, I ligate the entire organ to prevent its contents from spilling out. Okay, I'm now cutting out the organ, which will move to the board for dissection. Normally, the stomach and intestines are full of surprises. But not this time. We see remnants of undigested food and a dense mass of pills. You don't take this many drugs by accident.
Ablacığım sen tüm tuşlara mı bastın? Neler
Length and
yaptın
width
ya?
normal. No obvious pathological changes. Undigested drugs found in the stomach of the deceased. The direct cause of death was probably an overdose. I'll check the rest of the organs, and then the nervous system. Wolf's lungs are normal. The deceased's trachea is normal. The deceased's intestine is normal. No clear pathological changes. Abdominal cavity checked off. We can check the brain.
Eline bakmasaydım.
I make a cut to open the lid of the victim's skull and remove the brain. Brain is normal. No obvious lesions. Alright. I need to dissect it on a board.
Vallahi mahvettik ya.
Using a knife, I carefully cut through the brain tissue. I peek inside a bit, and... I don't think there's anything worth noting. As expected, the deceased's brain is in excellent condition. No discoloration or changes due to hypoxia. There is still the matter of the marks on the neck. They look superficial, but who knows? Maybe the spinal cord has been severed. I need goggles and a saber saw. I think the goggles were in the desk drawer. Oh, they're out there. Alice. Saw. I need saw. Fuck. I don't see it here. Oh. I know. I probably left it in the basement after its last cleaning. Mr. Ridley, I need a key to the basement.
It's in the social room.
Why is the key lying at the... never mind. Thank you.
Hey, Hammond. Did you hear about the convoy? Well, maybe you'll get a chance to relive your glory days and catch Red Beat again, huh?
Let's hope there won't be a need for that. If only he could put that much enthusiasm into his work. I get the feeling that searching through this rubbish is more pathogenic than working with please, may this be the last trip.
Buradan bir geçişli bir şey var. Yok. Sana lazım bir şey. Değil mi? Herhalde bir şey yok. Yok. Alakası yok. Bodrum nerede? Burada değil mi? Bodrum nerede?
Fuck. Why did the prison convoy have to get into an accident? Jack, take a deep breath. Deep, pleasantly cool breath. You're nearly finished with the autopsy. Then you can go home and rest. I'll take the saw. Fuck! It's jammed! Doesn't anyone do maintenance around here? Damn hatch. Damn red Pete. Will I ever again? Will I, if only...
Biraz gerginsin galiba.
It would be easier if I put things away properly.
Yani çıkış yok mu? Allah yok.
Damn student lectures and their fucking props.
Huysuz bir doktoruz biz.
And like clockwork, he's already sleeping.
Ne veriliyor? Bir şey yok.
Sorry for the short interruption. I hope, and now that I have, I'll move on to revealing the spinal cord. spine is removed. I can see that the spinal cord was not severed. This shows that apart from the marks around the neck, hanging didn't negatively affect the condition of the deceased. Ladies and gentlemen, almost over. Now, to sum up and tidy away the body. The direct cause of Samantha Barker's death was a heart attack resulting from an overdose of barbiturates. Traces found on the body suggest that the overdose was a deliberate act, following a failed attempt to hang herself. The autopsy found no evidence or genetic materials indicating that death could have been the result of an attack. Third-party involvement must be excluded. Autograph, and we can start sewing.
Tabii.
In the 1950s and 1960s, the use of barbiturates for suicide was actually quite common. I think it was most talked about after the death of Marilyn Monroe.
Kadının hiçbir organa bir şey kalmadı.
At home, it was a help and comfort. On death row, a farewell to the convicts.
Bitiyor.
Well, we're done for today. Thank you for your attention.
Ne demek? Ne demek?
Tiring day. I can feel those hunger pains coming on. I guess I'll have to pick something up along the way. Gloves in the trash, leave the apron for cleaning. A nightcap. Well,
Çok konuşuyor. İçeceğim.
good night, Mr. Ridley. The police will pick up the body and accompanying documentation in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I guess there are actually death and Ridley's reluctant attitude. All right, nip my whiskey on the rock.
Tamam iç viskini iç. Eve gidince viskini iç tamam.
So cold. I guess I should have brought my jacket to work. This block can be quite intimidating when it's so quiet. Almost there. Stephen didn't want to go out for a drink tonight, so I'll drink my whiskey in the company of my TV. Shit. I forgot the muffin. Well, Ridley will have a nice treat for the night. I'm sure he'll be his happy, thankful self tomorrow.
Daire kaç kilometre acaba?
What? What? What the fuck? But I locked it.
Ayda.
I'm sure of it.
Ev mat olmuş.
Who the fuck did this? I don't have anything valuable. Oh god. Oh god.
Geliyor.
What am I supposed to... Fuck!
Alfa.
Great. That's all I need. What if it was Red Pete? I wasn't able to support her through this.
Ne olduğunu bana mı soruyorsun gerçekten? Gerçekten.
Where? I need my pills. I can't get my thoughts together. Okay. I'm gonna have to report this to the police. Christ. Why did the neighbors not report anything? I'm calling Stephen.
Ya neden polisi aramıyorsun? Stephen polis mi?
Stephen?
Now, Jack, I told you, I'm going for a drink with you for another night in a row.
That's not why I'm ringing. Although I could do with one. Someone broke into my apartment.
What? Did anyone see anything? Have you called the police yet?
No, I don't think so. Anyway, no one contacted me. As for the police, I'm calling right now, officer.
All right. Do you want me to head round? Look for any trace evidence?
I don't know. No, I guess not. Honestly, I don't have the strength to deal with it right now. I just want to lie down.
Are you sure? Because it's no trouble at all.
I think so. I'm sorry. I just wanted to calm down a bit. I don't know. That's probably some stupid joke. Only money was stolen.
Money? From Alice's box? Oh, fuck. Listen, I can come over. I have the key. I'll drop by, do what I need to do, and you go get some sleep.
No, don't trouble yourself. Lately, I've been just so tired and distracted. I don't know. Maybe I forgot to close the apartment door on my way to work. If anything else is missing, I'll let you know and call the police.
All right. Just make sure you close it tonight. If you see anything weird tomorrow, let me know. Whoever did this may be watching you.
I don't think anyone is dumb enough to come back.
You're probably right. Take care, Jack. If you need anything, call me.
I promise I will. Thanks, Stephen. Sorry to bother you again. I've just been all over the place lately.
It's not a problem.
Good night.
Ya evimizi dağıttılar. Ve biz haberler misin acaba?
What?
Yani taraftan.
Where to start? There you go. I still don't understand why Alice liked this painting so much. To be honest, I could leave it like this. Shit. The glass in this thing needs to be replaced.
Jack, why?
I think I'm just tired.
Ya biz sesini duyuyoruz kadının. Hayır olsun inşallah.
Maybe I could barricade the door with this. I should pack this thing away. I have no interest in DIY at the moment. Now I'm sure I won't get caught up in these papers. Alice's family should really have some of these. That's enough for now. I'll get the rest in the morning.
Beş işte. Aynı şekilde kalktık. Evet içiyoruz mu?
Oh yeah, I should take my pills.
Tabii ki içiyoruz. Tabii ki. Aşırı doğrudan öleceğiz ha. Halüsinasyon falan görüyoruz.
I feel like it takes me forever to finish these things. That's enough. It will never look clean. I need to quickly change and finish getting ready. I'm gonna be late for work again. Got my keys, got my files. Check. Time to go. Remember to close the door properly, Jack. I'll ask the neighbors tomorrow if they saw anything suspicious. I wonder if Ridley fixed the coffee machine.
Yine gündüz vakti bineceğiz. Akşam vakti bakalım.
Maybe a bit optimistic. I'd better grab a coffee on the way.
Bak gene akşam vakti.
I'm exhausted. I wonder who Stephen brought in today. Good morning, Mr. Ridley. Oh, he's not here yet? No, I'll do without him.
Oo. Bekle.
I hope he... Oh, come on. He was too lazy to even wheel the gurney to the autopsy room.
Ben kahkahalar duyuyorum ben ya.
Almost there. Now for the tough part. The body needs to be moved. Where's Ridley when you need him?
Evet.
Alright. I just need some gloves and my apron. Then I can get to work.
Hadi bakalım. Gel. Eldivenimizi takalım.
I'm going to need my tape recorder for this.
Çalıştıralım.
Autopsy dated November 22nd, 1991. 7:32 p.m. I begin by verifying the identity of the Jane Doe.
Benim de o.
It's most likely Harper Lloyd, age 35, found in a well-owned house by her neighbors Leonard and Dorothy Chelsea. Reported missing. Firefighters found the body after the Chelsea family began complaining that their tap water tasted strange, and at one point had begun to smell and turn a dark color.
Oo, içtikleri sudan anlamışlar, orada bir şey oldu.
It is also known that the deceased was diagnosed with affective bipolar disorder. Harper was placed on drug therapy, which she dropped out of fairly regularly. During her treatment, she was under the care of her common-law partner, Richard Benson, professional truck driver. The last person who had contact with the deceased was her partner. Harper's last message read as follows. I'm gonna take a shit in their stupid well. Then we'll see who has the last laugh. Nice one.
Bir şaka.
Police records also show that Mrs. Lloyd was in constant conflict with her neighbors. The constant parties, the most important task in forensic identification of a drowned person is to distinguish whether the death occurred before or after entering the water. Okay, that could have been worse.
Çok
I
kötü.
carefully removed the victim's clothes so as not... The deceased was... one shoe was missing. I'm going to need the camera to document all possible suspicious marks.
Çok kötü, çok kötü, çok kötü. Kuyudan çıkarmışlar, çok kötü.
Definitely the first thing that stands out is the very advanced post-mortem gigantism. The skin of the deceased appears very delicate, smooth, and relaxed from being in the water for a long time. The whole body is extremely pale. It's likely that the deceased was lying on her back when she was fished out. There are bruises and hemorrhages on the neck. These usually occur due to increased inhalation when fighting to breathe underwater. Post-mortem markings are seen on the underside of the body, that is, on the back, thighs, and calves of the deceased. The so-called washerwoman's skin on the feet. The deceased had indeed been in the water for a long time. There are some obvious scratches on the skin. The skin on the hands can be easily separated from the body. The separation takes the form of a glove. So, after the preliminary exam, it's time to take a closer
Evet, ben inceleyeyim.
Today's date. The deceased was clothed. Rigor mortis does not need to be checked. Based on the state of decay, you can be sure it has subsided.
Hadi bakalım.
Where to start? We see thick, white foam in the mouth of the deceased, resulting from pulmonary edema. Foam is a characteristic in deaths due to drowning. There are obvious scratches on the skin, especially on the back and hands. These could be defensive wounds, evidence of some sort of altercation prior to death. The spots have a purplish blue-red hue, which is a typical sign of the death of the organism. No obvious signs of struggle. The skin on the hands would have easily peeled away from the flesh. Some of the fingers have already lost their nails. Yep, pretty typical. Liver mortis are formed as a result of putrefaction of blood in the veins. Due to the fact that the deceased was wearing shoes all the time, her feet are in better condition than her hands. Nevertheless, we can still notice a clear, wavy skin and the so-called washerwoman's skin texture. Okay, that's probably enough to indicate a direction for further examination. I'd better note that down in the records. Marks found on the neck and foaming at the mouth are typical signs of drowning people. Those abrasions appear relatively fresh. No healing or scarring is visible. Hands heavily wrinkled from submersion in water. Typical diffuse spots are caused by blood rotting in the veins. Considering the deceased's penchant for drinking alcohol, it could have been a mere accident.
Ben bakıyorum. Altı metre.
There doesn't seem to be anything unusual about this liver mortis. In this case, the question is, was drowning an accident or of suicidal intent? Maybe it's just an abrasion, or maybe the result of a fight, and liver mortis of a different color could indicate. Fortunately, the skin on the hands didn't. A simple trip, loss of balance, and their distribution suggests that the victim was probably lying on her back when fished out of the water. Before I begin the dissection, I'll make sure the suggested identity is correct. The suitcase with the fingerprint equipment should be around here somewhere.
Olur.
Oh, here it is. With decomposing bodies, the tissue of the pads and the fingers, if the body of the deceased is well preserved, the fingerprint sheet should always be checked. Slipping fingers, too much or too little ink, or inaccurate hand position can make fingerprints illegible. I'm going to conduct a dactyloscopic examination. If in fact the deceased is in the police database, I will find her. Glycerin is injected successively between the nail and the skin of each finger. The substance then enters the fingertip, removing shrinkage and wrinkles. Now I take a brush. Only when the skin is taut and elastic can you use ink. I think it's enough. I'm getting In the case of drowning victims, you have to be extremely careful. The skin may fall off the hand like a glove when you take the print. I'll use the fax machine to add the print into the system. Green button, and... Once the data uploads, I'll run the prints against the police database on the computer. Great. The data is there. Click Upload. Now, go through the database and find a matching print. Expect possible hours of fun. One more. Okay. Let's check for matches. This is not our Jane Doe. I wish there was an easier way to do this.
Çok benziyor.
One more. Analyze button. And we have a result. Everyone has a story to tell, even if it's just a police record. So, as predicted, the deceased turned out to be Harper Lloyd. That went smoothly. I'll print this out and attach it to the medical records.
Alkol sayfası saldırıya rahatsız kullanabilirsin. Saldırgan davranış. Alkol. Hep alkol.
I wasn't sure it would amount to anything, but the World Wide Web has been a blessing for speeding up my work. Great. Now we can go back to my inspection. I'm adding the name of the deceased. I'll start the internal examination by taking fluid from the victim's brain. A needle inserted through the nose will do the trick.
Neler yapıyoruz biz sana?
If the victim was alive when she fell into the well, she must have swallowed water fighting for her life. And then diatoms, characteristics of pooled water like a well, got into the body. In the meantime, I'll check the sample under the microscope. I'm sure that these algae traces will be found in the samples taken from the well where police found the body. Now I need to adjust the knobs properly and place the diatom in the center of the slide. Diatoms are single-celled microscopic algae. I won't even notice an army of diatoms from this distance. Great. This way I'll see if I'm dealing with a large concentration of these algae. The aperture still needs adjustment. Oh, I'm finally starting to see something here. It's not a dirty lens, I'm afraid. And perfect. As expected, we find the aforementioned algae in the solution. Their upper part, epitheca, which overlaps the lower, hypotheca, is clearly visible. The presence of diatoms in the brain samples taken indicate that the deceased was certainly alive when she fell into the water and was possibly conscious. Since there were diatoms in the brain, it means that many more of them must have entered the body. Studies of the rest of the organs will most likely confirm this hypothesis. I can finally get to the practical part. I must be extra careful because the skin of the deceased is very stretched. I wouldn't want an explosion here. You can immediately see a very large swelling of the organs. In addition, all internal organs are very congested. It's easy to see that the ribs have been imprinted on the lungs. So, I'm going to start by drawing blood. If diatoms were only present in the lungs, this would mean that the victim was placed in the well after death, and the perpetrator wanted to get rid of the corpse in this way. Now, I remove the lungs. Taking the lungs in my hand, I feel that the tissues have lost their elasticity, which is the result of water emphysema. In addition, there is significant swelling of the organs, and as a result, We have a nice imprint of the ribs. The emphysema itself, it's clear how far it's progressed, which is characteristic of drowning. Corpses found in water are worth examining with a tomograph. However, I can't count on such luxuries, so I must reach for a more archaic technology. A bucket and water.
Birini gördük.
I hope no one dipped a mop in it. It's best to go to the lab for this. Historically, the lung float test is used to detect infanticide. The water should be at room temperature. That's enough. To test for this, I have to place the lungs in a container of water. This checks if there is air in the lungs. And speaking of lungs, everything is ready to bring them here. Oh, Jesus. Of course, such a study isn't without flaws. Air may have entered a newborn's airways during resuscitation attempts. Gases released during decomposition could all... In this case, however, it's about something else. Namely, the amount of fluid in the lungs. To test for this, I have to place the lungs in a container of water and wait to see if they fall or if they will float on the surface. Just as I assumed, the lungs collapsed easily. Fluid could have entered the lungs during panic attempts to catch breath underwater, but it could also be the result of bacterial infections or cancer, so further investigation is needed. I move on to dissecting the lungs of the deceased. You can hear the distinct, very unpleasant crackling of the tissues being cut through. The parenchyma is remarkably pale, although small hemorrhagic foci and petechia are... All right. Now, I will check the collected fluid under a microscope. If we find 20 diatoms on the slide, it can be considered drowning, and our result is not false positive due to possible contaminations. Let's see, although I expect we'll find them easily. I won't even notice an army of diatoms from this distance. Great. This way, the aperture still needs adjustment. The image is too oh, I'm finally starting to see something here. It's not a dirty... and perfect.
Arıyorum bir şeyler ama. Aha, burada bir şeyler var abi.
As expected. In solution, the diatoms are clearly visible. There are smaller and larger clusters of them. There will definitely be more than 20 of them. I'll make a note of all this. So far, this case looks pretty standard. It's clear from the beginning that it's drowning. Well, the procedure requires me to check everything anyway. So, I move on to checking the other organs. I ligate the heart, and then remove it for inspection. Strongly developed putrefactic hemolysis of the organ can be seen at first glance. Apart from that, no signs of a heart attack or other heart disease. I move on to the next organ. This time, it's the liver. It's immediately apparent that the deceased didn't care for herself. The beginnings of cirrhosis are visible in some areas.
Biraz başlamış. İç o kadar
I
içerse
transfer the organ to a board and proceed to dissect.
o kadar içerse. Yani.
The cross-section clearly shows dilated veins and many small hemorrhagic foci.
Peki.
I must admit that this is quite a feat, considering the rather young age of the deceased. Harper enjoyed drinking so much that she might not have lasted a few more years.
Alkolik sırası harika.
I move on to the stomach. I take a sample of the fluid for testing. It looks very turbid. I'll see what happens after spinning, but that's in a moment. Now, I carefully ligate the organ, then cut it off. It's enlarged, probably full of putrid gases. I transfer it to the board and carefully open it, checking the contents. One thing you'd never get used to is how much this desk smells.
Koktuğu dedi. Dedim ayağım şey oldu. Hop.
Okay, the stomach is full of fluid and unidentified organic matter, which...
Yemek artığı. Tamam.
So let's check the diatoms. Again. But in a centrifuge for a change. The problem with examining drowned people is being able to show whether the death was due to drowning or whether something else contributed to the death. Cramp, heart attack, drugs, homicide, or some accident. Such an analysis requires viewing from different angles and a careful interpretation of the collected data, including those from the field. That's why it's so important to collect as many samples as possible. Unfortunately. Okay, this is one last little sample. Now, set.
Evet. Evet. Arkadaşlar yanında. Tamam. Hepsini yanında. Bak benim. Elektrik kesilme. Çok doğru.
Done. I'll run it directly into the chromatograph and run it against the data from the...
Tamam. Çıktı. Hadi gidelim.
I'm certain the analysis will show similarities between the fluid and water in Chelsea's well.
Hadi.
Let me think. 3 milliliters should be fine. Okay, now it's the chromatograph's turn. Yes. The water sample matches the one provided by the police. Well, the results are quite clear. I was hoping it would be a more interesting case.
Ne istiyorsun sen acaba?
More diatoms. Analysis indicates the same origin. Blah, blah, blah. There's little left to do. I'm going to check the airway page. Interesting. Looks like there's something stuck in the trachea. I'm moving to the board for further inspection.
Tabii tabii. Hemen.
I dissect the trachea and open the organ. Inside, based on the size, I can say that it's a woman's wedding ring, quite standard from the outside. There's an engraving inside.
Tarih bizim eşimizin şey değil mi ya? Yüzüğü alıyorsun ha, yüzüğü zaten alamıyorum. Çıkmıyorlar. Hadi bakalım kaldık. Ne yapayım ben şimdi bu yüzüğü? Ha? Yüzüğü ne yapacağım? Al buldum ben şu an ama hani hiç de bir şey yapmıyorsun. Kal mı geldi sana? Kal geldi. Oyun takıldı. Galiba. Şu an böyle kaldık. Yüzüğü alda kaldık. Geri de çıkmıyor. Geri. İleri. Hop. Yüzüğü al. Al götüreyim. Al yüzüğü. Değişik değişik şeyler açıyor. Kurulum pipeti. Al işte.
But how did it, but this should be at home. I have it. At home. I have to check this out. Where are my meds? Where the fuck are my meds? Oh, Jesus Christ! Hope these all make it go away. I have to check the apartment. It can't be. Jesus Christ! Mr. Ridley. Mr. Ridley!
What's all the ruckus?
I need to go home. Immediately.
What? Now?
I have to. Have you seen anyone here this morning? Anybody suspicious?
Oh, there was no one. Dorothy was, but only for a moment, then she left. What's wrong with you, Hammond?
Okay. Thanks.
What about the corpse?
I'll come back, I promise. Jesus Christ!
Nasıl delirdik biz ya?
I have to check this out.